What is going on, my friends, and welcome back to another video on the channel. Well, in today's video, we are going over Solana as it is making its final attempt and having its last chance to finally recover some of the lost ground from the last couple weeks before we could expect to see what I believe to be a 30 to even 40% correction from here. So with that said, we're going to go over exactly what I am looking for and exactly how I'm preparing for anything that this market does throw at us. So looking at Solana, of course, what we've been paying attention to has been a couple of things. One thing we knew is that we were in what we could consider to be Elliott's wave theory, which we had this 1, 2, 3, 4 to 5 wave to the top side. And once we set in this macro 5 wave, generally, if the market conditions are right, we will see something of an ABC correction, which is a more, a strong corrective wave to the downside. We'll usually see something of like a 5 wave correction first, followed by an impulse wave, which is B, followed by the continuation of that correction in which we set in this low. We complete out this 3 wave correction to the downside before eventually continuing to the top side if all of the many rules and certain things are met. Now, there's a lot of rules that this thing has to follow, and I will leave them down in the description below because we're not going to go into them today, but it's more based around the theory that we very possibly could have or could be finding a bottom extremely soon. Now, not only are we looking for this C wave to be put in, and there's a strong chance that it might have been already, we can see that we have come down to a very, very important key level of support in which if we hold it, we very possibly could see a strong continuation towards the upside and even possibly setting the new all-time high. Of course, again, if market conditions do allow. Do remember that Solana is not moving on its own right now. Solana is not going to just pump by itself. It is completely reliant on Bitcoin. It is completely reliant on the overall market to make those progressive steps in order for it to do it itself. I mean, that's the reason why I've been telling, again, my Patreon members, they know I've been accumulating on things like Ethereum. I've been accumulating on mostly Bitcoin or some Bitcoin, but mostly Ethereum, right? Like I'm personally just buying these larger scale cryptos right now because these alts aren't going to move on their own. But we definitely should be prepared to see them start moving once the market makes its, its progressive steps, and then we'll be prepared to enter into them in a better, in a better time in the market, right? So in today's video, what we can see is that we are in a spot in which we are seeing an extremely, extremely important back testing right now, okay? So again, what we were tracking was this descending wedge, and I told you all that if we broke to the downside of the descending wedge, to wait for us to back test it. We had this descending wedge right here in which we put in the resistance and the support, and then once we broke to the downside, almost always we will back test it, and then from there decide where we go for the next couple weeks. Do we re-enter here, hold a support, and start to try to revisit back up to the top side to maybe even come try to attempt to re-clear this resistance? Or do we get rejected back off to the downside to set in the new lower low below the previous low in which we set? And then from there, we have to really start making some strong steps to go back up to start trying to make some forward progress, which extends the time frame and the timeline in which we can see recovery. And right now, what you can see is that we are making that attempt right now. We came right back up to this key level of support. And what I would go ahead and say is that right now buying is extremely risky. What I would be doing and what I'm doing personally is I'm going to wait this thing out. I'm going to see, do we go ahead and do we break into this key level of resistance before we come back and lose this macro level of support right here, right around $45? I would say that if we're capable of breaking this key level of resistance and reestablishing it as support, there's a very strong chance that we come back up towards this $75 to $78 level, which definitely could be some pretty strong gains in the short term of, up to 15 to 20%. But if we are going to see the rejection, if we are going to see this thing keep getting pushed to the downside and we lose $44, do expect that we are coming back down to 34, but very probably to set the new lower low somewhere around $30, which at this point is a correction as far as 45 to 40%. So for that reason, of course, I am saying it can go up or it can go down. I can't predict whether this thing is going to clear this key level of resistance or not, but I can say what I'm going to do in preparation for either option. So personally speaking, if it breaks through this 45 level, I'm going to go short. I'm going to set a stop loss above this key level of rejection up here so that even if we do break this level and retrace, that it doesn't, basically I don't get liquidated too early for no reason. I'm just going to do this on very small leverage because this market is ridiculous right now, but I will be shorting this thing back down to the previous low around $35. Now, if we do go ahead and see that implemented, I will probably take most of the profits off the table at 35 and maybe even just leave a little bit in just in case we do retrace to $30 itself. So that's my short trade, and that's my plans for how I expect this thing to go. If we lose this key level of support, I am expecting this push down to these levels. Now, if we do break into the top side here, and if we finally recover back into this descending wedge, I'm simply just going to do a little bit of accumulating once we do see the 4-hour closes holding strong above that key level of support. I'm not going to go long. I'm not going to leverage buy this thing. I think it's a very, very foolish idea to be leverage longing right now in this falling market, but that's just my opinion, okay? So overall, I am prepared for either outcome, and I'm not really afraid of either one. I think there are gains to be made in either direction, and my whole goal as a trader is not to get all sentimental and emotional about the market, but to simply just make gains as much as I can, whether we're going up or whether we're going down. So that's the overall reason why I think that a bottom could be in, and why I think that there's a strong chance of us pushing back up towards the top side here. But I am very prepared for this thing to fail this rejection and get, pushed down towards the downside. And in that event, of course, we will be longing short or leverage shorting down on that, just in case we can pick up, maybe 30, 40, 50% in gains on 2x leverage. Could definitely be an absolutely amazing trade there. So overall, that's my look on Solana right now. Pay attention to the retest of the descending wedge. That's going to tell us everything we need to know. And as it does play out, I will update you guys very soon on my next steps and how I'm going to go about this going forward once one of these scenarios does play out. So if you do want access to the buys that I'm doing, especially the dollar cost averaging and all of that good stuff, some of my passive income plays, portfolio updates, trade alerts, and more, do go down to the link in the description. I do have my Patreon provided there. And of course, do check out some of the other links, as there are many benefits all throughout the description for you to check out. So with that said, that's going to be about it for today's video. Of course, I hope you guys did enjoy, and I will see you all next time. Peace.